What's up, guys? Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 17. It's a really fun episode. We hang out with my brother Matt. He's 4 years older than me. But before we get into that, there are a few things I want to talk about. Number one is that there are a lot of new subscribers who came over from Andrew's channel, who saw his video, and that's really awesome to get a bunch of new people talking about different things in the comments section and just viewing the videos. If it wasn't for Andrew, I definitely wouldn't be doing these vlogs, and you know, I don't know that like most of the people who are doing poker vlogs now would be doing them. So I just want to say thanks to him, and I don't really know what else to do to thank him other than maybe take him out to a favorable dinner or something like that, which I plan on doing. But maybe I can persuade a few of you guys to buy one of these pretty sweet t-shirts. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much guaranteed to make you run better and you know, probably pick up tons of chicks. So I'll put a link in the description box for where you can buy these shirts, and be sure to pick one up. Another thing I want to talk about is the poker group chat. There was a ton of interest in that, and I want to talk about the vloggers game that we're trying to organize. So I'll talk about those things actually at the end of the episode, so stick around for those things. For now, we will almost get into the episode. It's April, so it's baseball season. I love baseball. Most of the people in my family really love it, even Cosmo. Now I want to introduce you guys to my brother Matt. Here he is. He flew into Las Vegas, and then him and I drove down to Scottsdale to watch some Giants spring training games. We had a ton of fun together. I'd never gone down there before, but I've always wanted to go. We watched 2 games, and tickets were pretty cheap, so we got the best ones we could find. We ended up sitting right behind home plate for one game against the Brewers, and then we sat down the first base line for another one. It was a really great trip. Him and I played some catch outside of the stadium once the game was over. One night we saw a movie, and we played the Buck Hunter game. We stayed at a haunted hotel in downtown Phoenix. The room we got was apparently the room that Clark Gable used to request when he stayed there. My brother and I almost broke a few things in it, juggling the soccer ball. I kicked it up pretty high, and then it went off the ceiling fan and shot right back in my face. So we thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, I'm sure most of you are probably here for the poker. My brother and I only got to play one day because we had a pretty packed trip. So we went out to Talking Stick, actually on our way back to Las Vegas. Played for about 5 hours, and let's go ahead and get into it. It's March 23rd. My brother and I, we've been in Scottsdale and Phoenix for the last 3 days, just checking out Giants games at the spring training, and just checking out the city and stuff. Today we're on our way back, but we are gonna go cruise by the casino to play. I'm gonna play some 2-5, and I think Matt's gonna play some limit game. And
crush some limit game.
Yeah. We take a seat in the 2-5 while my brother's in the 3-6 limit game. We're in a new location, so we don't know any of the players, but it looks like a good game. In this hand, the under the gun player straddles. It folds to the button, who just calls. The small blind folds. I'm in the big blind with ace jack off, and I just call. It's probably a small mistake not to raise, but I don't mind keeping the pot small with ace jack offsuit, playing from out of position. Ace queen, I would definitely raise though. The straddler checks, so we go 3 ways to the flop. The flop is Jack 9-4 with 2 hearts. It's a great flop. We've got top pair, top kicker. I go ahead and lead right out for 20. Lots of draws. I don't want it to check through. The straddler calls and the button folds. The turn is a king of diamonds. It's not a great card. If he had a straight draw, he most likely either got there or at least made a pair. If he called with a flush draw, then he could have made a pair of kings or picked up some straight outs. I check and he checks back. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good. If he had a straight set, two pair, or a pair of kings with a draw, I imagine he'd probably bet, so I feel pretty confident that we're in the lead. The river is a blank, it's a six of spades, and I've got a few options here. I could check to try and induce a bluff from a missed draw, but instead I felt like he probably had a jack that I'm beating, so I bet 50. He calls, I turn over my hand, and then he turns over king 10 offsuit. So he called the flop with a gutter and an overcard, definitely reasonable, and then he checked the turn when he made top pair to go along with his draw. It was a little unexpected to see that he checked back a pair of kings, but it's not too odd, and it ended up working out well for him. As far as our play goes, I don't mind how we played the hand. Raising pre-flop would have been fine, but I don't know if anything would have changed. Just not a very fortunate run out for us. A few hands later, we get ace-9 suited in the hijack. Under the gun +1 limps in. He's not a real strong player. Ace-9 isn't a very good hand, but against a weaker player, it seems like a decent spot to go for the ISO. I'd seen the opponent limp fold a few times and limp call with some worse hands than ace-9 suited. I raised to 25, the cutoff calls, who was the straddler in the last hand, and the under the gun +1 player calls as well. The flop comes ace 3-3 with two diamonds. Under the gun +1 checks. We bet small, we bet $30. There's a flush draw out there, but most of the time we'll be way ahead or way behind, so no need to bet too big. We want to keep some of the pocket pairs in there. The cutoff folds and the under the gun +1 player calls. The turn is the 2 of clubs. The opponent checks. We check back for pot control, and just in case the other player limped in with ace-10, ace-jack, ace-3, or ace-deuce. The river is the queen of clubs. Backdoor clubs gets there, but no real reason to worry about that, especially after the opponent checks. We're very likely to have the best hand at this point. If the other player had an ace, he'd probably bet the river. We need to bet an amount that we can get called by with worse though. I throw out a small bet of 45. The opponent calls, I turn over our hand, and we win. Not sure what he might have had, but I would guess either a pocket pair or maybe he had a flush draw that made a pair of queens on the river. This next hand is really interesting. We have ace-queen offsuit in middle position, and the player to my right opens to 15. You might notice that in some episodes I 3-bet with this hand, and then in other episodes I don't. It kind of all depends on who the opponent is and a few other factors. If you're interested, I can go into further details in the comment section with this. Just shoot me a question about it. Here, I'm a little distracted because the small blind was asking me some questions about playing poker in Las Vegas, and we were talking about the vlog a little bit. I only mention that because it comes into play later. Anyway, I just call, and the cutoff, small blind, and big blind all call as well. We go 5 ways to the flop. The flop comes out king 8 deuce with 2 clubs. It gets checked to me. I've got nothing and no intention to bluff into 4 people with ace high. I check, and so does the cutoff. The turn is an ace of clubs. Small blind bets 20 into 75. It's about 1/4 pot. It folds to me, and I feel like I'm in a little bit of a weird spot. I can't really imagine this player betting so small with a hand like 2 pair, a set, or a small flush, because there are just too many bad cards to allow people behind him to call and outdraw him. I'm thinking that he has an ace, perhaps with a queen or jack high flush draw. Maybe he has a pair of kings with the king of clubs, and he's trying to see where he's at, or he's trying to get to the river cheaply with a draw. There's also a tiny chance he has the stone cold nuts and is putting fishy bet out there, hoping to squeeze some value out of people who are drawing dead, or hoping someone will raise behind him. But I don't see rec players doing that very often. I feel like he's got an ace or maybe a pair with a flush draw. I raised to 55, and I'm doing this for a few different reasons. Number 1 is that I think I'm ahead a lot of times. Number 2 is that if he does have a pair and a flush draw, I'm probably not going to get any value out of him on the river if he misses, so I need to get that value now. 3 is that if I'm behind, I'm probably drawing dead, so if he has the nuts, he'll either raise me and I'll fold, or if he calls and checks the river, I'm going to check back 100% of the time, and this saves me from having to call a river bet that might be more than $35. So I'm essentially limiting the damage if I'm behind. He does end up calling, and the river is another ace. The opponent checks, and remember when I said I was going to check back 100% of the time? Well, this just seems like too good of a card to check back. I bet 90, hoping to get value out of a worse ace that thought I might have raised turn with some sort of combo draw that missed, or perhaps a hand with the king of clubs. To my surprise, the opponent raises to 290. This bet definitely threw me for a loop. The general rule in 2-5 is that if you get raised on the river, people are just hardly ever bluffing, and if you fold every time in these scenarios, you'll probably be much better off. I'm just very confused here though. As I stated earlier, I didn't think he'd bet so small with hands like 2 pairs, sets, or small flushes on the turn, and he'd probably re-raise at least sometimes with a nut flush, but he's repping either the nut flush or a boat here. We also have to consider what my hand looks like, and my line is somewhat strange. I'm never going to have flopped a set and river to boat because I would have bet flop. I'm not likely to have turned 2 pair and river to boat because I would have 3-bet with ace king, folded ace 8, and folded ace deuce pre-flop. I can't ever have the nut flush either because I would have bet king x of clubs on the flop because I would have flopped top pair with the second nut flush draw. It looks like the best hand I can ever have is the queen high flush, and instead of betting flop with it, I just check to try and see a free card. Now, I don't expect a recreational player to think like this and pull off a bluff with just the king of clubs. For one thing, a hand like that has value, so I'd expect him to sometimes call with it, or more likely just fold. I can't see what he's going to show up with here though. He would have 3-bet with pocket kings or ace king, so he can really only have the king high flush, ace 8, ace deuce, pocket 8s, or pocket deuces. And I have a key blocker to some of those hands. The main thing I'm thinking is that him and I were just talking about the vlog, and maybe he didn't want to get pushed around, or maybe he wanted to bluff me on video. I super leveled myself, and I made the call. He turns over pocket 8s for a boat. Again, if you're in this spot, just fold when you get check raised on the river. This was a weird hand with lots of different dynamics. I don't really enjoy sharing mistakes, but maybe it'll help some of you and prevent me from making the same mistakes in the future.
Oh, fuck, I didn't even shoot there.
Now we get ace king off in the small blind, 2 players limp, and the button raises to 20. I 3-bet to 75. I chose this sizing because it's 3 times the raise size plus $5 for each limper, and a little more because I'm out of position. The big blind cold calls. By this point, I know a little more about him, and I've seen him make some strange calls and some strange bluffs. The other 3 players fold, so we go heads up to the flop. The flop comes queen 7-3 with 2 diamonds. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say this flop is not good. No pair, no backdoor flush draws, nothing. I check, the big blind checks behind. The turn is the 3 of clubs. Doesn't change much except puts another flush draw out there. I check, the big blind bets 80. Most of the time I'm just going to give up and fold, but I don't have any blockers to either flush draw, and I saw this guy bluff the turn earlier in a 3-bet pot with 8-7 suited with no draw and no pair. Sometimes I'm going to have to call with ace king high, and this seems like a reasonable time to do it. I call, and the river is the king of spades. It's the best card in the deck for me. I have a little bit of a dilemma now because my hand is basically face up, and I don't know if I'll get a call from anything that I beat except for maybe ace queen. If I check, I might be able to get a missed flush draw to bluff at the pot, but any other hand that I beat will probably just check back. I choose to bet, and as I reach for chips, he throws his cards into the muck, and I take it down. He said he had queen jack suited. Not sure if he was telling the truth or why he'd cold call with that hand, but I'm glad I got lucky on the river though. I guess. Maybe. It's time to check in with my brother and see how he's doing in the 3-6 limit game. I walk over and he's in a big hand. I can't even really see what's going on. All I know is that he bet and he's down to $12 if he loses. I'm pretty nervous to find out what happens. There aren't a lot of things I hate more than bringing someone to a casino who doesn't normally play poker and see them lose money. The opponent calls and my brother turns over pocket kings and he scoops the pot. This was pretty sweet. It was the only hand I watched him play and he didn't even know I was behind him, so it was really cool to get this on video.
What's up, Matt? Pretty good. Kings.
Now we head back to the 2-5 game and we get King Jack of Spades under the gun. Sometimes I'll fold this pre-flop from this position, but with no one really 3-betting much at the table, I open to 15. The cutoff, button, small blind, and big blind all call. Not necessarily a great situation for us. We go 5 ways to the flop, and the flop comes King 7-6 with 2 clubs. It's check to me, and I bet 40. The cutoff, button, and small blind all fold. The big blind now calls with a short stack. He's only got about 280 left. He's an older guy, and he's a little bit goofy, so I'm sure that him and I are somehow related. I've seen him do some weird things and call extremely light, so I don't necessarily think he's going to have a big hand here that often. The turn is the 3 of hearts. There are now 2 flush draws on the board. He checks. A lot of the times I'll check back here since my kicker is somewhat weak. I've seen this guy make some really light calls in the past though, and since there are some flush draws out there that I can get called by, I go ahead and continue betting. I bet 110 and he calls, leaving himself with 169. The river is the king of hearts. We make trips, but the backdoor flush draw gets there. There's not a lot of reason to be worried about it though, unless he had a hand like 9-8 of hearts. I just don't really see him hitting that. He checks, we bet 150 for value. He slides all of his chips in. I throw in one more to make the call. He has the 5 of spades and the 4 of clubs, so he flopped an open-ender and then binked the nuts on the turn while I was drawing dead. So far, it hasn't been a very fortunate day for us. We just lost a pot that would have gotten us unstuck, so we're a little bit frustrated. Instead, we have to add on a few hundred and we're in for 1,600 total. The good news is that Matt is collecting people's souls in the 3-6 limit game and he's up a cool $40. We still have to drive back to Vegas and it's getting late, so my brother and I decide to play one more round each. I pick up Jack 9 of diamonds in the big blind. It folds to the cutoff, who opens to 15. The button calls, then the small blind calls. I'm definitely not going to fold. It seems like a decent spot to 3-bet, but I don't mind calling 10 more and seeing a flop. I throw in 2 red chips, and the flop comes out Queen 8-3 with 2 diamonds, so I flop the straight flush draw. The small blind checks, I check, the cutoff checks, and then the button takes a stab at it and bets 40. The small blind folds. I used to raise in this spot a lot, but now I kind of like calling. If I raise and get re-raised, I'm going to try and get it all in, and if I get called, I'll probably be up against either a set or a better flush draw. If I raise and get called, it puts me in a bad situation too, because I might continue to semi-bluff the turn if I miss, and even if I hit the flush, I don't know if it'll be good. So I like calling now, even though it's not great to be playing draws out of position. I call, the cutoff folds, and the turn is the 8 of clubs. I check, the button bets 80. I don't know how often this player is going to call pre-flop with an 8 and then bet on the flop. It seems more likely to me that he's either got a flush draw, a queen, or nothing and decided to bet flop since it was checked to him, then figured I might have called with a draw and I might give up on the turn since the board paired. I really don't like calling in this spot, not knowing where I'll be at even if I make a hand other than the straight flush. I just have too big of a draw and I'm not convinced the button has a super strong hand yet, so I raised to 270. Perhaps I can rep an 8, pocket 3s, or queen X of clubs, and I might be able to get a queen or a better flush draw to fold. He does end up folding. I'm not sure that I necessarily like my play, but I'm definitely glad that it worked out. That hand ended up being the last significant hand of the session. After that, I racked up and headed to the cashier. I booked a loss, but I was happy because my brother won and he had a good time overall. We just finished playing poker, played for 5 hours. I lost $400 and Matt won. He crushed it just like you predicted. He won $40 playing 3-6 limit. I think that I probably could have lost a little bit less, maybe broken even or won a little bit. There's one $200 call with ace queen in particular that I think is really bad. But other than that, I think I played okay. Just wasn't really my day.
Yeah,
Matt played perfect.
perfect. No mistakes, no flaws, no regrets.
That's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Some of you are not subscribing, and I'm going to fine you. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and comments about how I played some of the poker hands. Feel free to leave those in the comment section. There were a lot of thoughts I had regarding the decisions I made, and I just wasn't able to communicate all of them because the video was just getting too long. In the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that I was going to talk about the poker group chat. There was a ton of interest. I think a few hundred people either commented or sent me emails saying they wanted to be a part of it. So what I'm going to do is create a website. I want to try and include as many people as possible, and we'll go over hand histories and strategy and hopefully all improve together. I also said that I would talk about the vloggers game. There's a group of us. It's me, Poker Kraut, Andrew Nemi, and Jeff Boski. We're all committed to getting this game going, and we're talking back and forth pretty regularly now to try and get this going. It'd be great to get it started by the beginning of the series. I think that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at, maybe even before May. So talking back and forth, depending on the location of it, we might be able to get my buddy Check Raise Chuck to be in on it as well. And it'd be great to have the Trooper, but I think he needs a little bit more persuasion. So if you want to see him play in it, please comment on his videos and let him know you want to see him. There are a few other people who have sent me emails, actually several other vloggers who sent me emails saying they wanted to participate, and it's just a little bit tough to decide who gets to play and who doesn't. So maybe we'll do another game at some time to include everybody. Just the selection criteria is somewhat difficult to come up with. Maybe we'll just do it by who has the most subscribers. Yeah, and then the last thing is just that the next episode is going to be a lot of fun. I play with Danielle Anderson, better known as D Moon Girl, and also I play with the hashtag King. So we play some 510 at Bellagio. It's a lot of fun. It should be a cool episode. Be sure to be on the lookout for that. I think I'm going to have it up by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. That's it for me, guys. Hope you're all doing well, and good luck at the tables. Thanks for watching.